Welcome! Today I'd like to walk through Gotransverse's role-based user management UI security design, how flexible, granular, and easy to configure it is. Starting from left to right, let's walk through a high-level overview of the design. A user is the base unique access level to the application. Access for users are defined by the roles that are assigned to them. In most cases, a user is assigned a single role, but it is possible for a user to have multiple roles. Roles play a key connection point between users and their access to the actions they can perform in the application. Just like users and roles, roles are built from authorities. There are two types of roles in the application, or two forms. Standard roles, which we have built based on the typical roles that our customers have in their organizations, and custom roles, which can be configured by your system admin authorities. Authorities grant the functional level of access in the application. There are two types of authorities, aggregate and individual. There are also two forms of authorities, those that give users access or access authorities, and those that give individual action level controls, which are action authorities. Limits control to what extent a user can perform a specific action. For example, in creating an order, I can create a limit which will limit the amount a user can override the list price on an order item. Limits are available for a limited set of actions and are configured with the role. Now let's walk through how the user roles, authorities, and limits work together. For an example, I have a standard role of a CSR, and I assign that role to a user. The user having that CSR role gets two aggregate authorities, one aggregate authority that inherits a set of individual access authorities, and the second, aggregate authority that inherits a set of action authorities. For a CSR supervisor role, it's very similar to the CSR standard role, except for in addition to those two aggregate authorities, I also get an individual action authority assigned to the CSR supervisor. For the admin standard role, they get access to all aggregate and individual authorities in the application. Now for a custom CSR specific role, or a custom role that would be created by your system admin, I can assign multiple aggregate authorities to that CSR role. I can assign individual authorities, action level or access level authorities to that role, and I also have the ability to, for specific actions, assign limits to that custom CSR role. Now let's walk through how these items are configured and work in the actual user interface. I'm logging in as my user, an admin user. Let me first orient you on the three layers of access control in the UI. In the upper right, we have what we call the application switcher, which allows the user to navigate to various portions of the application. As you can see, as an admin, I have many options to choose from on an individual application, such as customer billing. On the left side, we have what's called areas, which further segment the application. Beyond the areas, if I actually search down to an individual billing account, at an individual billing account level, we have what we call the sections, which are these gray tabs at the top that provide different information. On the individual billing account, for example, you can see then within all of these sections below this third layer is where the individual actions display in the application. On the Invoices tab here, you see the individual actions. For an individual invoice at this action level, for the Payments tab or Payments section, you see all of the actions the user can do on an individual payment. Now let's see where an admin would configure these users, roles, authorities, and limits in the design. I first need to navigate to the admin portion of the application. And first, let's view where you manage users in the user section. This page displays all of the users created for this tenant. In the table, you can see at the individual user level, all of the roles that are assigned to the individual user. If you select into a user, you can then see the roles for the user. And not only see the roles, but both add and remove roles to this user. Now let's move on to the roles section where you can manage roles, authorities, and limits. This page displays all the roles on a tenant, both standard and custom. It allows you also to add new custom roles as well. You can tell a standard role versus a custom role by actually selecting on the role. When you select on the role standard roles, you will not be able to edit the authorities or name of the role. However, on a custom role, you will be able to edit the detail on the role and fully edit the authorities. Reviewing the custom role, this custom role I created for the demo, just like you can for a user add and remove roles, you can do the same thing searching, adding and removing authorities on a custom role. Here I will search for aggregate authority and narrow it down to, let's say, customer billing. And you can select or multi-select authorities and either add them or remove them to the custom role. Now let's look at this specific custom role that I created for the demo and really focus in on the authorities assigned for the custom billing, custom management portion of the application. You can see here for custom billing, I gave the authority to this role. For full access in the order section, full access in the summary section, specific action level or individual action level access on the invoices section, to the resend invoice action, and then read-only access so you could get to and navigate and see everything in customer. We're billing customer management in a read-only view. The other items here are just other portions of the application that will be available in the application switcher. Now, let's look at one more item. On this configure a custom role for the application, and specifically what I want to show you is the limit section. So I have configured a limit based on the actions in the order section, specifically the create order, add order item actions. I've put a limit which limits the ability for a user to override the order item price by more than $100 more than the actual list price of the product. Now, let's log out of the application as my admin user and log in as a user that just has this demo limits role to see these authorities and limits in action. I've logged out of the application as my admin user, and now let me log in as a user that has just the role or the custom role that we just reviewed assigned to them to see these authorities and limits in action. The first area of the application I'll show you the access controls is when I go to the application switcher. No longer can I scroll in the application switcher and see many different portions of the applications. There's a limited list of portions that I can navigate to. If I go to the customer billing, customer management area, I can see on the left side I also have now a limited list of areas that I can view all around customer billing. Customer management, if I navigate to the billing account itself. I can see I did grant the user a read-only authority to customer billing, customer management. So they can see all of the sections here for the billing account. I granted the user in the order section a full access to all of the actions. So you can see for individual orders, I have the ability to do all of the actions for individual orders. Now, however, if I go over to the payment section, I didn't grant the user any access to any actions in the payment sections. And you can see all of the actions. Actions are removed in the invoices section. I didn't grant the user full access to the invoices. I only granted the user access to a single action, resend invoice, and you can see I have access to the resend invoice. The view PDF access is part of the larger read-only that I gave to. It's a larger aggregated authority for customer billing, customer management. Now let's view the limit in action. I need to create an order to view the limit. So let me add a subscription product to an order. I'll select a list price, so a monthly recurrence with $100 list price. Now, the limit that I put in place was that a user could not raise the list price more than $100 from the original list price. Let's try that and see what happens. Now I've been able to change the price, but the limit only gets applied when I actually save the draft order. So when I save the draft order, you see the user gets an error message saying that they've entered or overridden the order price above their limit. Please change your request or check with your admin to see if there's an issue with your limit. So let's set the price to $199, just under the limit, and try to save the draft order. We see that the draft order saved successfully. The order item is part of the order, and the recurring price is set to $199 per month. Hopefully you've been able to see via the overview and the brief demo how flexible our role-based security design is, supporting many combinations of access and action controls. Also how granular it is, allowing you to control UI access, down to the individual action level and beyond, to be able to set limits which govern to what extent a user can take a specific action. Additionally, hopefully you've seen how easy it is to configure users, roles, authorities, and limits within the design. Thank you for your time. We hope to see you again on other videos.